guys, it's Emma, and I'm back today for you with another video. Now, I understand, I admit, and I acknowledge, you did not get the February wrap-up in the beginning of March. You are getting the February wrap-up in the middle of March. I understand. I know, but better late than never. I read 10 books for the month of February, and girlfriend, do I have to tell y'all something, okay, about February? February reading for me was very up and down, up and down, up and down. Let's just jump on into it. And let me know which books y'all read for the month of February, okay? All right, the first book that I read for the month of February was Emma and the Night by Wendy Walker. This is basically about two sisters that go missing, and then one of them turns up 3 years later without the other one. I gave this 1 star. I was so angry at this book that I threw it against my closet wall. I've realized I'm very picky about 2 things. I'm very picky about romance and thrillers. All right, romance, I figured out how to navigate my pickiness for that. However, thrillers, I have not figured out how to navigate my pickiness for y'all. So we're still kind of beefing here, especially with this latest Slight. This was just so monotone because it was just the sister that came back telling us what happened when they both left and were kidnapped and like were held hostage for 3 years. So it wasn't really interesting at all. It was just like a big Cass monologue. There were also some points in here where I could tell that it was trying to be, you know, like sexually empowering for women in particular, but it honestly just came off as very perverse. Because of how the characters are. None of the characters in here are likable or even tolerable in the slightest. The mother's a grade A narcissist, which the book will take 30% of it to cement it in your mind that she's a narcissist. The stepdad and the stepbrother are pedophilic douchebags. The older sister's pretty much a bitch. So no to Emma and the Night. It was just very disappointing. I read it fast, so I guess that's a pro. Next, we have Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. I gave this bitch 5 stars, okay? This is basically about kids that have been spirited away to worlds through doors, and they've been spat back out into our world, and if they're having trouble readjusting to our world again, they're sent to this school where they essentially live with a bunch of these other kids who have gone to these different worlds. And oh my goodness, I loved this. All right, I get the hype. I get the hype. I do. It was just coming off so much as, okay, this would be if the next book followed the Pevensies directly after they came home. Okay, it was awesome. I'm always fascinated with the whole idea of going into a door and essentially going into a completely different world that is nothing like how we could ever imagine. I love that. All right, and the different worlds that were discussed in here and how they're kind of cataloged via, you know, logic and nonsense. It was just so cool, all right? And the mystery in here was definitely very creepy, okay? So this is definitely worth the hype. If you were like me and you were just kind of, I don't know, take it from me, all right? Someone who has seen the light, this book is amazing. And now I need the rest of the series. The next book. Did you see how much my emotion just like deflated? Yeah, that's pretty much how it's going to be for the rest of this video, okay? Because the third book that I read for February was Heart of the Sun Warrior by Lynn. This book has to be the biggest disappointment for me for this entire month. I pre-ordered it immediately after I read Daughter of the Moon Goddess, because this is the sequel to that. I loved Daughter of the Moon Goddess. With that being said, though, in all the fervor of finishing Daughter of the Moon Goddess and loving it, and then pre-ordering this book, when I finally cracked it open, I didn't realize how much of Daughter of the Moon Goddess wrapped everything up very nicely, okay, because quite honestly, Daughter of the Moon Goddess could stand as a standalone. This whole book to me was just grasping at straws to make anything worth 456 pages worth of plot. They milk the love triangle in this book to the powder, all right? I'm sitting here thinking to myself, y'all are still doing this? Wasn't this resolved, you know what I mean? And even at the end of the book, it was like, they brought in a trope that I just don't like at all. It's the resurrection trope, which at that point, you might as well just bring everybody back, because why not? You know what I mean? It ruins the emotional stakes of it. It ruined the love triangle. The love triangle was already ruined. All right, the second I opened this book and realized that we were still doing that shit, I was like, no. Sorry, that's a pass for me. The dialogue made it very on the nose, because the villain would say something along the lines of, this is why love never does anything for the strong. This is why you must get rid of love, because love will never do anything for you. And then the protagonist would be like, no, because love makes us strong. Love makes it... Come on. You know, it was like such major eye rolling. As horrible as it sounds, I'm probably gonna try and forget it ever existed. Okay, so I can live with how the first book turned out, because the first book was actually pretty damn good. Now back up, okay, the next book that I read for February was again by J.L. Seegars. This is a very short novella about these two people who were once married but then got divorced. The girl's sister and the guy's brother are getting married to one another, so they basically get roped into going to Mexico and having to sit across from one another. And it's just all about them essentially trying to work out what didn't work in their marriage the first time and hopefully trying to get back together again. Hence the title. I loved this, okay? It's really short. I read it in the gym. This was just so not only cute, not only sexy, not only steamy, but this dealt with a lot of really tough and hard-hitting issues, for example, like childbearing and infertility. It was just so beautiful, and I loved how well it was handled, and the fact that it's only like, what? 126 pages. If you're looking for a really good short black love read, definitely go with Again. I cannot recommend this enough. Following suit. Unfortunately, the next book that we have for the month of February is The Cat in the City by Nick Bradley. This is basically just about people in Tokyo and the cat that's connected all of them through its appearance in all their lives. I DNF'd this at 34% on page 104. I was just bored. This whole book, in my opinion, read like an overview of Japan, and anytime we would, you know, see someone talk about important cultural issues or important social issues, like for example how there have to be women-only train cars because groping on trains has become so bad. Anytime we would ever glimpse an ounce of those types of conversations, it would immediately gloss over and just go right back to the rest of the story. And it's like, you missed a lot of really good opportunities to talk about stuff that was really important and probably would have added a lot more depth to your story. Because other than that, the writing in here is nothing to write home about. Next, we have When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. This is about 1950s America, and there is a mass dragoning where thousands upon thousands of housewives and just women all around the country become dragons and fly away. And we follow one girl named Alex in particular who is dealing with the fact that her aunt flew away but her mother didn't. I loved this book. Okay, I gave it 4 stars. I think that this is a better The Power by Naomi Alderman, all right? However, with that being said, because I gave it 4 stars, there are some things in this book that I think could have been added to make it even better, if that makes sense. For example, we really only follow white women. We're told about how some black women dragoned, but we're never really shown them, if that makes sense. I also wish we were kind of told more about the dragons and where they went, because you have some dragons that went into the ocean to fight whalers and to protect whales, and then you had some that flew into space to go explore the planets and everything like that, and then you had some that went into the jungles. It was so cool, but we didn't see anything about that, and I'm kind of disappointed about it. However, I think the rest of this book is really, really good. It's a really interesting, almost coming of age type story, which, I don't know, I just loved it. And I would say if you're like me and you weren't really a fan of The Power by Naomi Alderman, this will be, I think, a better something that took that idea and made it a little bit better. Next, for the month of February, I read It Will End Like This by Kyra Leigh. This follows two sisters whose mother has died, but they don't believe she died the way everybody says she died, and are therefore trying to figure out how she died and why they feel like their dad and their new stepmother, aka their mother's old personal assistant, are trying to get rid of them. I gave this 2 stars, and let it be known, okay, that this is a very, very low 2. The sentence structure in here was so annoying. It was like short sentences, which they're normally used to emphasize tension, but when you use one right after the other, it just becomes choppy and annoying as shit to read, okay? Also, it felt like the author here does not know how to write teenagers. Some of the stuff in the sisters' inner monologues and just the writing, in my opinion, was so cringy. Like Emma in the Night, I got through it quickly. I think I read it in one sitting. So I guess that's a pro. Next, I read The Ruins by Scott Smith. This is about a bunch of tourists that go on a day trip and then have to survive a horrific nightmare that ends up ensuing. And I gave this 3 stars. This is 500 something pages. I read it in 2 days. Okay, the pacing is awesome. The pacing is amazing. The body horror is amazing. The fact that it was a very slow burn and then clapped you right when it should have was great. For the first 200 pages, I was liking the naive, dumbass tourist thing that this book had going on, because I was like, oh, okay, it's a commentary on, you know, how stereotypical tourists are like, nothing bad could ever happen to me in a foreign country because I'm a guest. Nothing bad could ever happen to me, you know? So I was like, oh, okay, you know, this I can work with. Until it started to keep going and going and going and going. And then it just got to the point where I was like, I just want to see you bitches die. The only one that I liked was Jeff, okay? Because Jeff got shit done. Maybe not in the best way, but he had the best head for survival. And I was thinking to myself, y'all are liabilities. Every single one of y'all, okay? Because you're on the verge of heat stroke and the first thing you think to do is drink some tequila. Really? And then because you drank so much tequila, y'all gorge on the food rations. And then when Jeff literally picks y'all apart and rages on you and rants to y'all that y'all are fucking pathetic, y'all want to cry and get mad at Jeff and say that he's being too harsh. No, y'all are just liabilities. The antagonistic force in here was creepy as shit, okay? And which made the body horror even more gruesome. It was really good, okay? I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and I liked the movie that came out in 2008. I thought 2008 did a pretty damn good job with that movie, okay? The 9th book that I read for February was Colton's Terrible Wonderful Year by Vincent Meis. I apologize if I butchered the last name. I give this 2 stars. This was an arc that was sent to me by Book Sirens. Thank you very much, Book Sirens, for sending this to me. However, I really did not like this book. A lot of the times when we were discussing BLM, it was really more so for a plot device and nothing else. There wasn't really much character development, even for our main protagonist, whose head we're in the entire time, so any decision that they make just was very flip-floppy because there were no layers to give us any, I guess, monologue or tension or anything like that. I don't know. And a lot of the times they were like being tourists in this book, the characters were, and they just came off as so cringy, stereotypical tourists. Like, what do you mean COVID is still going on and you want to go travel? With this next thing, I realized that sex education is very important to have shown in books geared towards young adults. However, I don't want to read about a 14-year-old jacking off. I was uncomfortable. It was weird. I just don't want to read about that. Also, with that in mind, this book read more like for middle grade, which threw me off a little bit because I was like, I know this is YA, but it read for middle grade. So unfortunately, this was not my cup of tea. I would say, however, if you're looking for a slice of life type of book, this might be up your alley. To close off February with an amazing end, okay, I read Him Standing by Richard Wagamese. This is basically about an Ojibwe man named Lucas Smoke who is very, very good at carving. He can like look at someone's face for 30 minutes and then perfectly replicate it on a wooden carving. It is amazing, okay? And one day he gets a commission to make a mask. And as he's making this mask, he gets more horrifying dreams, and he starts to wither away by making this mask. And it's all about him basically trying to figure out what this mask is being made for and how to stop it. I gave this 4 stars, okay? It was incredibly short, it was incredibly tense, it was incredibly fun, okay? I loved this. All right, it was really cool to see parts of Ojibwe culture in this book. For example, shamans and how they look at magic and how they deal with magic and negative aspects of it. And I loved it. It was so good. And it was all jam-packed into maybe 2 hours. All right, because I listened to it as an audiobook. It was just really, really good. And now I want to read more Richard Wagamese, okay? And his books, at least in the Barnes & Nobles that I've been to, are very hard to find, so I've got my work cut out for me. But you know what? It'll be worth it. If they're anything like Him Standing, I'll do it. So you guys, those were all the books that I read during February. I hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry, once again, that this is a little late. However, like I said, better late than never. I hope that you guys had a better reading month in February than I did, and I hope that you guys are having a good reading month now in March. Okay, I will get the March reading wrap-up out on time, I promise, okay? But with that being said, you guys, I hope you enjoyed. I hope that you will continue to look out for more stuff on my channel, that you guys are staying safe, and that you guys have a good rest of your day.